The transportation and logistics industry has its own set of challenges. In the hot seat, industry thought leaders take on M&A and what's driving the future of transportation and logistics. Are you ready for the hot seat?
Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. What's it like to set out on an ambitious growth strategy while locking arms with private equity? Well, we're going to unpack all of that right now with my next special guest, president and founder of Texas TransEastern out of Houston, Texas, JJ Isbell. JJ, welcome to the hot seat.
Thanks, Spencer.
Well, all right, sir. I can't wait to unpack recent transaction and where your business is moving forward. But before we do that, why don't you just take 20, 30 seconds and tell us a little bit about Texas TransEastern?
Sure. So we're a 42-year-old company. Founded it when I was 18 years old, believe it or not. And we are in the fuel delivery business is our main function. We do some other bulk, but mainly fuel. Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi currently. And we were blessed in those 42 years to grow our company to about 250 trucks and about 475 drivers.
Well, an amazing job. And obviously from our standpoint, my compliments to you and your team. One of the most efficient and well-run companies we've ever had the privilege to represent, through an advisory process. Didn't happen overnight. So take us back. You're 18 years old. How does this thing come to life? How did it come together?
Yeah. So I grew up in my dad's company, which is a fuel and oil distributor. In my high school years, I was the dispatcher for his company, and just kind of evolved that there was a need in the Houston area. This is back in early 80s, of a really good carrier. There was a few carriers in the market, but none of them did a very good job. And just through that, noticed and started hauling for hire. And then when I graduated high school, started hauling for hire in the Houston area, and then acquired a company in 1985 in East Texas that had a railroad commission permit. Back in those days, you had to have a railroad commission permit in order to haul for hire, which I didn't know, believe it or not, when we were doing it. And so acquired that company, and just through those years, grew it. But basically, learned kind of the fuel hauling out of my dad's business, and then kind of just saw a need, how to build a better mousetrap, and just saw the need and started the fuel transportation business.
Well, I love that. Now, I've been struggling with this for months, JJ, about the math around, you look so young, and you're talking about how long you've been in the business. Now I understand about when you started. That makes a lot more sense. So I mentioned the performance, and I think, when we interview our past clients, some of the best things that our future clients learn about is like, well, how do I experience what JJ experienced? And we're going to unpack that here in a little bit, but walk us through, you're talking about 40 years of leadership that went into kind of building the company, what it is. What are some of the things that you can share with us along the way that really allowed your company to separate when it came time to look at potential investors?
Well, I think it's a long process. It's not a process, honestly, I never thought 40 years ago about building the company into what it is today and selling it. It probably didn't cross my mind. It's just, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? You're in the middle of the fight every day, and you don't think about that. And you know what? I think the hardest thing for somebody that starts a company is you're a micromanager. You're involved in every decision. You're involved in every transaction. You're involved in everything that goes on. And I think the biggest struggle for somebody that starts a company is bringing in people to help you do that, and trusting them, and turning over some of the power, I don't mean power, but some of the decisions that you feel like you should be involved in, turning that over to people that make those decisions so that you can grow your company. Cause you can't grow a company to any size if you have to be involved in every decision. So that's the biggest, thing for a founding, owner to do, is to turn over responsibility to people and trust them to make those right decisions. And so we made the decision to do that years ago, and we've been blessed to have just such quality people over these 40 years that helped us get it to where it is today. And you cannot do that if you're not organized and have structure. You've got to have structure and you've got to be organized, because if you're going to scale, if you're disorganized and don't have structure and you try to scale, it only gets worse. You know, you've got to scale a company to growth. You've got to do that.
So what were some of your influences along the way? Because a lot of people talk about these things, but executing is a little bit different. So what were some of your influences along the way that allowed you to actually not only just talk about it, but execute at a high level?
I have a law enforcement background. I think we've talked about this, and law enforcement's a lot like military, and it's a very structured, chain of command, organized, organization. And I really feel like, that law enforcement background that I was doing at the same time as trying to grow this company, really helped with scalability and structure and organization. I really do. And, for companies out there that are positioning themselves maybe in the next 10 years or 5 years to have a sale, just make sure that you're organized and you have structure in place, because your buyers, that's what they're buying. Mm-hmm. There's lots of trucking companies out there. They want a trucking company that's scalable and has structure and organization in place to be able to scale.
Yeah, and clearly that was very obvious to the ultimate party that we ultimately transacted with, and made a huge difference in the whole way that they viewed the value proposition. So before we get there, let's make sense of, like, how did you think about what were some of the influencers that led to you going down the path of making a change? Because a lot of folks listening to this, they're saying, like, if you had a great business, why, you're young and you're healthy, what would compel you to do anything different?
A couple factors. One, I think our industry, the fuel delivery side of trucking, is poised for some consolidation. Yeah. And the main factor, I want to be part of that. And I want TTE to be part of that. And I wanted to be on the platform side of that equation, number one. But number two, we could have done it as TTE without a partner, but we would have to go out and do that with debt. And, I turned 60 last year, and I did not want to burden TTE with a lot of debt in order to do that, these future acquisitions and these future consolidations. And so we started looking for a financial partner that could partner with us to be the financial side of this. It was kind of the driving factor. And again, I turned 60 years old. I've been doing it 42 years. There's some other things that I want to do. No,
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I hope my industry friends are listening to that. You don't have to do it by yourself. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat. So a great takeaway for those listening. So obviously, you at some point you hired Tenney Group. What were some of the processes that led to that decision?
I think, the main thing that brought us to you, Spencer, is that you only represent sellers, which a majority of folks that are sellers are the people that started the business, and you only represent trucking. So I just think, there's lots of M&A folks out there, and they do everything. They represent, people that are, manufacturing and doing all these other things. And I think you guys specializing in the trucking side and the sales side, is really what drew us to y'all.
Well, I appreciate that. So we go through this process, You've had some M&A experience directly. You mentioned acquiring a company on your own. What were some of the lessons along the way every deal is a little bit different. What were some things that you learned that could be valuable to folks that might be selling at some point in the future?
Yeah, well, I will tell you, the due diligence process, if you haven't been through it on the sell side, is intense. And depending on the size of the transaction, how intense it gets. Ours was intense. There was a lot of due diligence, and make sure that if you are positioning to sell, go ahead and start doing audited financials, because it just makes it so much easier. Do it a few years out, but make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row. Make sure that you have that organizational structure to where when they ask for data, you have it readily available. And it just makes the process so much better. It just, and it also enables you to close faster. Cause, they could close tomorrow if they have everything they need to close. But, every day you delay because you don't know where a document is or you don't have an answer to a question, every day you delay pushes your close off.
Yeah.
So make sure that you've positioned yourself. There's a lot of things to position yourself for sale, but make sure you're positioning yourself with your back office and your structure and your organization. It just makes the whole process a lot better.
No, I love that. So as far as, what was a place where you felt like you were supported well by our team during the process?
The due diligence process, your team knocked it out of the park on helping us, walk through that process. And with the documentation, with packaging it all, for our partners, y'all were very instrumental in making that be as smooth as possible.
Well, I appreciate that. It's like you said, the larger the business, the larger the transaction, the more sensitivity there is around people writing checks. And so, like you said, just to compliment you right back, I think we're only as good as the availability of the documentation in some cases, and you guys and your team were elite. So JJ, let's talk about what's next. We talked about consolidation, and you wanted to be on the front end of that. What do you see happening both with TTE and the liquid bulk space as a whole?
We're seeing on the customer side lots of consolidation. There's, the big retailers, the 7-Elevens, the Circle K's, the Casey's, and others are buying lots of stores from these probably small founders that have maybe 10 to 100 stores. And that side of the business is consolidating. So those customers are going to want to deal with more regional carriers. They want to deal with fewer carriers to handle bigger areas. So, that's that. And then, again, there's a lot of, founders in our industry that age-wise are getting to a point where they're probably wanting to do something else also. So, we've already seen one of our other competitors recently, do a deal. So, I think we're going to see some consolidation on our side that supports the customers on the other side with their consolidations.
No, it's definitely an exciting time, and I just really am excited for you, JJ. So I am curious, you mentioned you want to be a part of the consolidation, but you also said there's some other stuff that you're interested in doing. What are some of those things that maybe non-transportation related that have you excited about this next chapter of life?
Yeah. So, we have a family partnership that we're buying some companies in that, totally unrelated to trucking. Not that we wouldn't look at a trucking deal, but totally unrelated to trucking. And we already, closed one deal in that. We're doing some real estate things. I've got 3 grandkids now. One of them is 2 weeks old today. So, I want to spend more time with them. So, yeah, just, less of the day to day in the near future, of running trucking, but, still involved. I really enjoy the M&A side. We've already been very aggressive. We've only been, 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks from close, and we've already had one company under LOI already and, others on the way. So, I think this is going to be a pretty quick process of scaling this up more.
Well, I couldn't be more thrilled for you. So a couple more questions. Now, I want to kind of go back. I'm really interested, you talked about your law enforcement background. Your family has a long history of community service. Tell me about that. Why is that important to you? I mean, I know this is kind of like a hard pivot, but I'm just kind of interested about how you think about that in this next season of life.
Yeah. Well, so my dad's the longest serving mayor in the history of Pasadena, Texas. I actually served on city council for 8 years. We got to serve together for a year and a half of that 8 years. And my grandfather's retired law enforcement. So, our family has always kind of been, it kind of, I guess it's kind of instilled in us that you give back, and you try to leave this place better than you found it. And, so, I want to do what I can to mentor, other small businesses that, help them. I want to do things to give back. The Lord has blessed me in my life, and I want to do my part to bless others.
Oh, I love that. All right, I got one final one question and one wild card for you. So last piece of advice. You gave a little bit of encouragement, but if you had to distill it down to one piece of advice for someone who's thinking about selling over the next 3 years, what would you tell them?
To really tighten up, to look for efficiencies. Buyers look at the bottom line, and try to do things to reduce overheads, to try to posture your business to be the most profitable it can, and to make sure that you've got that you've got all your ducks in a row. I know I said that before, but make sure that you've got your things documented. You've got your back office solid, that you're posturing yourself to be able to scale up. Because these buyers don't want to have to come in there and put in the infrastructure and put in the back office to scale. They're buying companies that have that so that it can scale. We looked for a partner. We had other, as you know, Spencer, we had other offers that were more lucrative dollar-wise than the deal we took. But it was more important to us to find the right partner than the total bottom line. And we found the right partner. And so the main thing I would tell people is get your house in order.
Yeah. Get
your house in order and have yourself the most efficient it can be for scalability and profitability.
No, I was bragging on you literally yesterday, JJ, because, someone was saying I would never do a deal with private equity. And I was like, well, I think you have a blind spot. It just depends on what you're bringing to the table and having the right partner, because in your situation, you've got a great partner, the type of partner that trusts you, that says, hey, what do you need to go execute and grow? And ideally, if you're doing what you said in terms of building the type of machine that creates demand, then you're going to have a lot more influence over selecting what type of buyer and what that's going to look like post-transaction. So I really appreciate the advice there. All right, last question, JJ, and we're going to let you get back to it here. So recently, you were very generous, took me and my son to an Astros game. And you're like the mayor there, which was hilarious. And we had a good time with that. So let's just say you get called in. They said, JJ, we need you to take over the GM for the Astros. Who's the free agent? Who's your first call to get one player into Houston that's not there right now?
Oh, as of today, they have, we're pitching is struggling, the batting struggling. I think they've been, shut out 3-4 games in a row now. The one free agent, let me think about that. Probably a pitcher, probably a dominant pitcher. You got to have a strong, pitching, maybe Garrett Cole once he's healthy. But one of the really strong pitchers. I think we need an anchor for our pitching staff. So, when we get our hitters back healthy, which y'all met Jordan, at the game, he's down in Corpus right now rehabbing. Hopefully he's back next week or so. I think our offense is built. It's just not executing right now. But I think a really strong dominant pitcher is who I would, go out and get.
Well, don't be surprised when the community and the sports world finds out that you've got some spare time on your hands or a little bit more bandwidth. You might be getting that call after all. Hey, JJ, thanks so much for spending some time with us in the hot seat. That's going to do it for us here. We will see you next time.